Rachel Sanders is set to marry the love of her life, Liam, at her family's beautiful estate. But as guests gather to celebrate, an unexpected visitor arrives, a man named Daniel, who shares a surprising connection to Rachel's beloved late grandmother. His presence stirs long-buried family tensions, challenging Rachel's family's deep-rooted beliefs and putting her at a crossroads between her family's expectations and her own values. When her father, Richard, confronts Rachel about her choice to include Daniel, Rachel must make a decision that could change everything: her wedding, her family, and even her relationship with Liam. As tensions rise, Rachel's courage is tested in ways she never expected. What unfolds is a journey of love, transformation, and the creation of a legacy that will forever change her family's story. Will Rachel's family embrace her vision of unity, or will tradition pull them apart? Watch to see how one woman's determination leads to an unforgettable wedding day, a legacy of love, and the ultimate test of family bonds. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy stories of resilience, family, and the power of love to overcome even the deepest divides. And let us know in the comments, what would you do if you were in Rachel's shoes? The estate buzzed with laughter, the kind that bubbled up from nerves and excitement. Rachel Sanders stood at the tall window, watching as family friends streamed across the lawn, turning her childhood home into a dreamscape of golden light and delicate white ribbons fluttering in the summer breeze. Today was her wedding day. She adjusted her gown, feeling its smooth weight settle against her shoulders as she inhaled deeply, calming the excitement mixed with a trace of unease. The Sander family estate, nestled in the Green Hills just outside of town, was a place her parents cherished for its rich history and tradition. Her father, Richard Sanders, was in his element, greeting guests with a confident nod, shaking hands and exchanging warm laughs. He was a man who prided himself on upholding the Sanders name. Rachel's wedding was as much about family legacy as it was about love. Rachel knew he loved her, even if his love was sometimes laced with conditions. Her mother, and adjusted her veil with a tender smile. "Rachel, darling, you look stunning. Liam is going to be so lucky to call you his wife." "Thanks, Mom," Rachel replied, her gaze shifting to the spot where Liam stood, surrounded by his family. They had known each other since college, their bond deepening over shared dreams and gentle ambitions. Yet, even now, a faint tension hung in the air. Rachel's maid of honor, Sarah, joined her, eyes sparkling. "Ready to become Mrs. Carter?" Rachel chuckled. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's just hope Dad keeps his opinions in check." The ceremony was set to begin. As the officiant called the guests to gather, a quiet buzz rippled through the crowd. At the entrance, a man stepped forward, his attire modest but dignified. His dark eyes scanned the lawn, searching for a familiar face. This was Daniel Johnson, a man few in attendance recognized, and yet he walked with a purpose that spoke of something unspoken and weighty. Rachel noticed him almost immediately. Something about him, his posture, his expression, stirred a sense of curiosity. Her father, however, did not share the same sentiment. "Who invited him?" Richard's voice carried across the lawn, a whisper turning into a murmur as guests craned their necks to see the man who had drawn his ire. Rachel's heart skipped as she saw Daniel's face, marked with a hint of discomfort, but also a quiet resolve. She moved toward her father, whose face was darkening with each passing second. "Dad," Rachel whispered, "please, let's not make a scene." But Richard's voice was hard. "This is a private event. I won't have strangers walking in uninvited." Rachel felt a flicker of defiance. She turned toward the stranger, her voice steady. "Sir, I'm Rachel. Can I help you?" Daniel's eyes softened as he met hers. "I'm sorry for intruding. My name is Daniel Johnson. I knew your grandmother. She was like family to me." Daniel's words carried a weight that made the chatter die down. Rachel's grandmother, Margaret, had passed just a year ago, and the memory of her compassionate spirit remained fresh in Rachel's heart. Richard's expression tightened. "This is a wedding, not a reunion." Margaret would have wanted. "Dad," Rachel interrupted firmly, "maybe we should listen." Her father's glare softened only slightly, but he stayed silent, allowing Daniel to continue. Your grandmother was a guiding light when I had nothing, Daniel began, his voice calm, yet brimming with emotion. She believed in me when no one else would. I just came to pay my respects. Tears pricked Rachel's eyes as she looked at him. She remembered her grandmother's kindness, the way she treated everyone with a dignity that transcended societal expectations. This man, a stranger, suddenly felt like part of her family's story, and she felt the urge to protect him. After Daniel's short, heartfelt speech, Richard took Rachel aside. His face was flushed, his voice controlled but simmering. Rachel, this is your wedding day. Are you going to let some outsider disrupt it? Rachel felt a pang of frustration. Dad, he knew Grandma. He came here to honor her. Isn't it something we should be proud of? Richard shook his head. Your grandmother may have had her beliefs, but I won't have this family's reputation tarnished on your wedding day. Either he leaves, or I will. Rachel felt torn. It was her wedding, but it was also her grandmother's legacy, a legacy that had shaped her into the woman she was. Liam approached them, sensing the tension, his brows knitted with concern. What's going on? He asked softly. Dad wants to throw out a guest who came to honor Grandma, Rachel said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. Liam placed a hand on her shoulder, though his expression was uncertain. Rachel, maybe it's best to avoid conflict today. Rachel's heart sank. Conflict isn't what I'm after, but maybe love should mean more than keeping things neat and perfect. Rachel's father's words echoed in her mind as she stepped back from the confrontation. She had never seen him so visibly distressed, so intent on controlling the narrative of her wedding day. As she glanced across the lawn, Daniel stood alone, his presence quiet but resolute. Guests eyed him with mixtures of curiosity, suspicion, and sympathy, their voices a low murmur that grew louder with each passing moment. She took a deep breath, finding Sarah by her side. I don't want to cause a scene, but this feels wrong, Rachel whispered. Sarah, always steady and loyal, squeezed her friend's hand. Do what you think is right, Rachel. I know your heart. Your grandmother would want you to stand up for him. Rachel nodded. She knew Sarah was right. Her grandmother, Margaret, had taught her to be strong, to follow her values even when it felt impossible. As the officiant began to formally start the ceremony, Rachel felt a surge of clarity. She lifted her chin, her voice calm yet firm as she interrupted. Excuse me, she said, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. Before we begin, I want to introduce someone who's here today in memory of someone I loved very much. The guests stilled, their attention shifting fully to her. Rachel felt the weight of every gaze, and for a moment, her resolve wavered. But Daniel's quiet, patient expression anchored her. Everyone, this is Daniel Johnson, she continued. He came here today to honor my grandmother, who, as many of you know, was a woman who believed deeply in kindness and generosity. She didn't see people for what they had or didn't have. She saw them for who they were. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd, some nodding in respect, while others cast skeptical glances at Richard, who looked increasingly tense. Rachel could feel his silent disapproval pressing on her, but she held her ground, drawing strength from the thought of her grandmother's warmth and acceptance. Rachel turned to Daniel, her eyes inviting him to share his story. Daniel hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but Rachel's encouraging smile emboldened him. He took a few steps forward, standing next to her. My name is Daniel Johnson, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Years ago, I was going through a hard time. I didn't have much, and I didn't have anyone to believe in me until I met Margaret Sanders. Rachel's heart swelled with pride. Her grandmother had always been a beacon of hope for people in need, and hearing Daniel's words made her feel closer to her even now. Margaret gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere to go. She helped me get back on my feet, not because she had to, but because she cared, Daniel continued, his voice breaking slightly. She taught me to believe in myself when I had lost all hope. I came here today because I wanted to honor her memory. Rachel felt a tear slip down her cheek as Daniel's words resonated with her own memories of her grandmother's unwavering kindness. Around her, the guests were visibly moved, some nodding in quiet respect, others dabbing at their eyes. Just as Daniel finished speaking, Richard stepped forward, his expression hardening as he addressed the crowd. "This is supposed to be a day of celebration, not a day for strangers," he said, his voice sharp. "Margaret was a kind woman, but that doesn't mean anyone can simply walk in here and disrupt our family's event." The crowd was silent, a heavy tension settling over them as they observed the clash between father and daughter. Rachel felt a surge of frustration and disappointment. "Dad," she said, her voice strong, "this isn't a disruption. This is a reminder of what Grandma believed in. She would have wanted Daniel here." Richard's eyes narrowed, his jaw set in defiance. "Rachel, you're my daughter, and I want what's best for you. But today is about our family and our legacy. Don't let sentiment ruin what we've worked so hard to build." Rachel's hands trembled, and Liam stepped up, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Rachel, maybe we can talk about this later," he murmured. But Rachel shook her head. She looked out over the crowd, her voice rising with conviction. "I'm sorry, but I can't pretend this isn't important. Daniel knew my grandmother in ways that we may never understand. He's here because he loved her, just as we do." Her father's face softened slightly, his eyes glinting with a mixture of anger and regret. He looked around at the watching crowd, then took a deep breath. "Very well," he said, his voice strained. "If that's what you want, he can stay. But don't expect everyone to understand." Rachel's shoulders relaxed, relief flooding her. The crowd shifted, some guests appearing uncertain, but others offering warm smiles of approval. Rachel knew this wouldn't be the last time she'd clash with her father, but for today, she was determined to honor her grandmother's legacy. After the ceremony, Rachel finds herself surrounded by friends and family who offer congratulations, but she can sense an undercurrent of tension in some of their words and expressions. Richard avoids eye contact, maintaining a polite but distant demeanor. Daniel approaches her, his gratitude evident in his gaze. "Thank you, Rachel," he says softly. "I know this wasn't easy for you." Rachel smiles, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. It's what Grandma would have done. Back in the bridal suite, Rachel finds herself alone with Liam. He seems withdrawn, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he begins carefully, "this was a beautiful ceremony, but I'm a little worried. Your daddy looked pretty upset." Rachel nods, struggling with her own conflicted feelings. "I know, but this is bigger than us, Liam. If we're going to build a life together, I want it to be built on honesty and compassion. I want to honor Grandma's legacy." Liam sighs, his gaze softening as he reaches for her hand. "I love that about you, Rachel. Just let's try to keep peace with everyone, all right? I don't want this to create divisions." Rachel feels her resolve strengthening, though she understands Liam's concerns. "I know, but sometimes peace comes at a cost, and maybe this is something worth fighting for." In the following days, Richard arranges a small family gathering, where he plans to address the lingering tensions from the wedding. Daniel is invited, but Rachel senses her father's discomfort with the idea. He joins them reluctantly, his presence casting a shadow over the room. At the gathering, Richard clears his throat, his expression reserved. "I wanted to take this opportunity to clear the air. I don't agree with how things unfolded, but I know this means something to Rachel." Daniel speaks up, his voice calm. "I understand your position, Mr. Sanders, but I hope you can see that I'm not here to take anything from your family. I'm here because of Margaret and what she meant to me." Richard's gaze softens, but he remains silent, the emotional struggle clear on his face. As the weeks go by, Rachel and Daniel continue to meet, bonding over stories of her grandmother. Rachel learns more about Daniel's journey, the hardships he faced, and the kindness her grandmother extended to him when he needed it most. With each conversation, she feels her grandmother's spirit growing stronger within her. Richard begins to observe the connection between his daughter and Daniel, and though he remains guarded, Rachel senses a slight shift in his demeanor. It was a chilly afternoon when Rachel returned to the family estate for what she knew would be a difficult conversation. Since the wedding, her father's silence had been thunderous, his disapproval hanging in the air like an unspoken judgment. This time, however, Rachel was determined to bridge the growing rift. She found her father in his study, surrounded by the old leather-bound books and heirlooms that spoke of the family's storied past. He glanced up, his expression reserved as she entered. "Dad," Rachel began, her voice soft but steady. "I know the wedding wasn't what you expected, but I can't apologize for honoring Grandma's memory." Richard's expression tightened. "Rachel, your grandmother may have had her beliefs, but she never would have wanted this disruption to our family's reputation." "Dad," she replied, her gaze unwavering. Her values were about love and acceptance. She believed in people, not appearances. Richard's face softened for a fleeting moment before he set his jaw again. "This is about protecting you, Rachel. Protecting our family." Rachel took a deep breath, the weight of her next words heavy in her chest. "Maybe it's time we think about what family really means." As word spread of Rachel's continued friendship with Daniel, other family members began voicing their concerns. Her Aunt Marilyn and Uncle George invited her and Liam to dinner, intending to talk some sense into her. Rachel sensed their unease from the moment she walked into the cozy warmth of their living room. Over plates of casserole and polite conversation, Marilyn finally broached the subject. "Rachel, we're all a bit worried about the direction you're taking. Family comes first, dear. You've always been a sensible girl." Rachel smiled politely, though her heart pounded with frustration. "Aunt Marilyn, I understand where you're coming from, but this isn't about leaving family behind. It's about standing up for what family should be." George leaned in, his brows knitted. "Your father has done so much to uphold the family name. Bringing someone like that man into our lives could affect us all." The room fell silent, tension crackling in the air. Liam placed a reassuring hand on Rachel's shoulder, but she sensed his own apprehension. "Maybe it's time we create a new legacy," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "One that reflects kindness and acceptance. Isn't that what Grandma would have wanted?" Her words hung in the air, met with uneasy glances and a few murmurs of disapproval. Rachel knew she was fighting a deep-seated prejudice that wouldn't disappear overnight, but her resolve only grew stronger. The next morning, Rachel met with Liam at a quiet cafe, hoping for a reprieve from the tension at home. Liam had been her rock, the one she'd always counted on for support, but today she sensed a distance between them. "Rachel, I love you, and I respect what you're doing," Liam said, stirring his coffee absently. "But I'm worried. All this tension, it's affecting everyone." Rachel's heart ached at his words, but she nodded, understanding his concern. "Liam, I know it's difficult, but this isn't something I can just walk away from. It's a part of who I am." He looked at her, his eyes soft but troubled. What if we put some distance between ourselves and all of this? We could start fresh, focus on us." Rachel's gaze faltered, her mind reeling at the thought of walking away from her family. She felt torn between her love for Liam and her determination to honor her grandmother's legacy. "Liam, if we're going to be a family, we need to build it on values we believe in. I can't pretend this doesn't matter to me." Liam reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Then we'll face it together, Rachel. Whatever happens, I'm here." Relief flooded her, but Rachel knew the real challenge was yet to come. She was about to make a choice that would change everything. Richard called a family meeting, inviting Rachel, Daniel, Liam, and the extended family members who had grown increasingly uneasy with Rachel's stance. They gathered in the main hall, the familiar space now thick with tension. Rachel's heart raced as she faced her father and relatives, knowing this was the moment she had been bracing for. Richard stood, clearing his throat. "We're here because certain decisions have affected this family. Rachel, I love you, but this insistence on including Daniel in our lives is pushing the limits." Rachel felt a swell of anger, but she held it back, her voice calm but firm. "Dad, this isn't about limits. It's about values. Grandma believed in kindness and in giving people a chance. I refuse to betray that." Her Aunt Marilyn shook her head. "Rachel, you're young. You don't understand the complexities of family reputation." Daniel, who had remained silent, finally spoke, his voice steady. "I understand your concerns, but I never intended to cause discord. I came here out of respect, not to divide this family." Rachel glanced at Daniel, gratitude shining in her eyes. She turned back to the family. We have a chance to break away from the fears and prejudice that have held us back. Can we not see this as an opportunity to grow?" Her words echoed in the room, met with silence and a few uneasy glances. Richard's expression softened, though he remained guarded. For the first time, she saw a glimmer of understanding in his eyes, but she knew this change would not come easily. In the days following the family meeting, Rachel found herself standing at a crossroads. Her father's silent judgment, her family's disapproval, and Liam's wavering support left her feeling isolated. She had to decide whether to continue her journey of acceptance, even if it meant risking relationships she held dear. One evening, Rachel met with Sarah, who had stood by her side through every twist and turn. They walked along a quiet park trail, the cool night air heavy with unspoken thoughts. "Sarah," Rachel said, her voice barely a whisper, "I feel like I'm losing everything. My family, my support, it's all slipping away." Sarah stopped, turning to face her friend. "Rachel, you're not losing anything. You're standing up for what you believe in, and that's something no one can take from you. Not even your father." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she realized the truth in Sarah's words. Her grandmother had always told her that true strength came from within, and now Rachel felt that strength rising, more determined than ever. With a renewed resolve, Rachel made her choice. She would not back down, even if it meant walking this path alone. The following weekend, Rachel received a surprising call from her father, inviting her to meet him at the estate. She arrived, unsure of what to expect, and found him waiting for her in the study, his face softened by a new vulnerability. "Rachel," he began quietly, "I've been thinking maybe I haven't been fair. I wanted to protect you, but I see now that I may have held on too tightly." Rachel's heart swelled with hope. "Dad, I understand, but I want you to see the world through my eyes too. Grandma taught me to live with compassion, to embrace people even when it's uncomfortable." Richard sighed, his gaze drifting to a photograph of Margaret on his desk. "Your grandmother, she was always one for seeing the good in people. I just wish I could see things as easily as she did." Rachel reached for his hand, feeling a tentative bridge form between them. "We don't have to agree on everything, Dad, but I want us to respect each other's choices. That's all I ask." Richard nodded, his grip on her hand tightening. "I'll try, Rachel. For you, and for your grandmother." After the intense family meeting, Rachel left the estate with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Standing up for what she believed in had felt empowering, but the tension with her family weighed heavily on her heart. She knew that healing wouldn't come quickly, and some family members might never understand her choice. Still, she felt at peace, knowing she had honored her grandmother's values. Over the next few days, she took time to reflect, finding solace in long walks through the park and quiet evenings spent reading her grandmother's favorite poetry. Each word seemed to resonate with her journey, grounding her as she prepared for whatever came next. One evening, Liam invited Rachel to dinner at a small, cozy restaurant. She sensed he had something important to discuss, and as they settled into their seats, a quiet tension hung between them. "Rachel," he began, his voice gentle but serious, "I've been thinking about everything that happened with your family and with Daniel. I want you to know that I admire your strength. You stood up for what you believe in, and that's one of the reasons I love you." Rachel smiled, relief washing over her, but she noticed a trace of hesitation in his eyes. "But," she prompted softly. Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But I've also realized that this path you're on, it's one I never imagined for us. I know we agreed to face it together, but sometimes I wonder if we're moving in different directions." Rachel's heart tightened at his words. She reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "Liam, I know this hasn't been easy for you, but I need to know, do you believe in the same values I'm fighting for? Because if we're going to build a life together, it has to be one where we both feel whole." Liam looked down, his expression conflicted. "I believe in you, Rachel. I need time to understand if this is something I can fully embrace. Can you give me that?" Rachel nodded, her heart aching but understanding. "Of course. I love you, Liam, and I want us to be together. But I want us both to feel like we're building something that matters." They shared a quiet, heartfelt embrace, each feeling the weight of the choices ahead. For the first time, Rachel sensed that their journey might require sacrifices neither of them had anticipated. Determined to continue honoring her grandmother's memory, Rachel reached out to Daniel, inviting him for coffee. They met at a quaint cafe on a sunny afternoon, where they found a small table by the window. "Thank you for meeting me, Daniel," Rachel said, her voice warm. "I wanted to apologize for everything that happened at the wedding. I never meant for you to feel unwelcome." Daniel smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Rachel, you don't have to apologize. I know your family's traditions mean a lot to them, but I'm grateful that you chose to see me as more than an outsider." Rachel nodded, her heart full of gratitude. "I've realized that sometimes breaking with tradition is the only way to create a better future. And I'd like for us to stay connected if you're open to it. I feel like there's so much more I can learn from you." Daniel's expression softened. "I'd like that, Rachel. Your grandmother saw something in me when no one else did, and it means the world that you're carrying on her legacy. Maybe we can work together to make a difference." Rachel felt a spark of inspiration. What if we started a community project in her honor? Something that helps people find hope, just as Grandma did for you. Daniel's face lit up, and together, they began brainstorming ideas for a mentorship program aimed at helping underprivileged youth. Their conversation flowed easily, each idea building on the last, and Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The following weekend, Richard invited Rachel to the estate for a private conversation. She arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness, unsure of what to expect. As they sat in the family room, Richard looked at her with a contemplative expression. "Rachel, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about Grandma and about family." Rachel nodded, staying quiet to allow him space to speak. "I realize now that I may have been too focused on preserving our legacy," he admitted, his voice low. "Margaret always did see things differently. She had a way of looking past all the walls people put up, and I see now that I let my own fears cloud my judgment." Rachel felt a lump in her throat, her father's words surprising her with their vulnerability. "Dad, I know you were trying to protect me, but maybe what Grandma taught us, compassion and kindness, is the best protection we have." Richard looked down, a hint of regret in his eyes. "I don't know if I can change overnight, Rachel, but I want to try. For you, and for your grandmother's memory." Rachel reached over, squeezing his hand. "That's all I need, Dad. Just the willingness to try." They shared a quiet moment, each feeling the first hints of a new understanding taking root between them. Inspired by her father's openness and her conversation with Daniel, Rachel dove into planning the community program. She contacted local organizations, reaching out to potential partners who could help bring her vision to life. As the weeks went by, Rachel and Daniel met regularly, coordinating efforts and gathering resources. Together, they outlined workshops, mentorship opportunities, and support networks aimed at empowering young people in need. Their shared purpose fueled their work, and Rachel felt as though her grandmother's spirit was guiding every step. One afternoon, while finalizing plans for the program's launch event, Daniel turned to Rachel, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Rachel, I think your grandmother would be proud. What we're building here, it's something that could change lives." Rachel smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I like to think she's watching over us, encouraging us to keep going." As the program took shape, Rachel invited her family to a small launch gathering, hoping they might see the impact of her vision. To her surprise, most of her relatives attended, curious about the project she'd poured her heart into. Richard arrived, his face a mix of curiosity and pride as he observed the event. Rachel watched him carefully, feeling a renewed sense of hope. During the event, Daniel shared a short speech, expressing his gratitude for the Sanders family's legacy of kindness and compassion. He spoke of Margaret's influence and the hope that this program would carry her values forward. Richard listened intently, his expression softening as he absorbed Daniel's words. When the speech concluded, he approached Daniel, extending a hand. "Thank you, Daniel," Richard said, his voice warm, "for honoring my wife's memory, and for helping us remember what she stood for." Daniel shook his hand, a look of respect passing between them. Rachel's heart swelled with emotion, knowing this small gesture held the promise of healing and unity. After the event, Liam pulled Rachel aside, a quiet smile on his face. "Rachel, seeing you up there, leading this incredible project, I realize how much I admire you. You've stayed true to yourself, even when it wasn't easy." Rachel felt a wave of relief, her doubts melting as she looked into his eyes. "Thank you, Liam. I know this hasn't been easy for either of us, but I'm glad we're here together." Liam took her hands, his expression tender. "I'm proud of you, Rachel, and I want to be part of this journey with you, whatever it takes." They shared a quiet embrace, each feeling a renewed commitment to the life they were building together. Months after the launch of the community program in her grandmother's honor, Rachel and Liam decide to renew their wedding plans. This time, however, they envision a simpler, more inclusive ceremony that embodies the values Rachel has fought so hard to uphold. They choose a small, scenic venue surrounded by nature, inviting friends and family members who supported their journey. The guest list reflects Rachel and Liam's commitment to building a life rooted in compassion and understanding. Alongside their family, the guest list includes people from all walks of life, many of whom are connected through the community program. Rachel's father, Richard, though initially hesitant, agrees to the new arrangements, sensing the importance of this day not just for his daughter, but for the whole family. On the morning of the wedding, Rachel takes a quiet moment for herself, reflecting on the journey that has led her to this day. She thinks of her grandmother's influence, the strength she found within herself, and the friends and family who stood by her. A sense of calm fills her as she looks forward to this new beginning, one that feels truly authentic. Sarah joins her, bringing a bouquet of simple white flowers that match Rachel's gown. "Are you ready for this?" she asks, a warm smile on her face. Rachel nods, her heart light. "I've never been readier, Sarah. Today feels like the start of something truly beautiful." They share a hug, the love and support of true friendship evident in their embrace. As the ceremony begins, guests take their seats on a rustic outdoor patio surrounded by flowers and the gentle sounds of nature. Liam stands at the altar, his eyes filled with warmth as he watches Rachel approach, her smile radiant with joy. The officiant welcomes everyone, inviting them to share in a celebration not only of Rachel and Liam's love, but also of the values that have brought them together. He speaks of the importance of compassion, respect, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Rachel's father, Richard, watches with a mix of pride and quiet humility. He has come to understand the depth of his daughter's beliefs, and though he is still learning, he feels a newfound respect for her. When it's time for Rachel to say her vows, she looks out at the gathered family and friends, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "I promise to love you, Liam, with all that I am," she says, her gaze locked with his. "I vow to honor not only our love, but the love that connects us all, in ways that bridge our differences and embrace our shared humanity." A soft murmur of approval ripples through the crowd as Rachel's words resonate deeply with those who have witnessed her journey. As the ceremony proceeds, Rachel pauses, turning to address Daniel, who sits among the guests, quietly observing the proceedings. She gestures for him to join her and Liam at the altar, a gesture that surprises and moves everyone in attendance. "Daniel," she begins, her voice steady and warm, "you were a friend to my grandmother, and now you are a friend to us. You've shown us the importance of kindness and understanding. Today, we would be honored if you would stand as a witness to our vows." Daniel's eyes widen with gratitude, his face reflecting a mixture of surprise and humility. He rises, joining them at the altar, and the guests watch with admiration as Rachel includes him in this significant moment. "Thank you, Rachel," he says softly, his voice thick with emotion. "It means the world to be here with you." The officiant continues the ceremony, leading Rachel and Liam through their vows. With Daniel standing beside them, the ceremony becomes a testament to love that transcends boundaries and honors the connections that have brought them together. After the ceremony, as guests gather to celebrate, Richard finds himself at a loss for words. The weight of his past reservations feels heavy, but he knows it is time to share his heart with his daughter and with the friends and family who have stood by her side. He raises his glass, clearing his throat. "Today, I witnessed something truly beautiful," he begins, his voice wavering slightly. "My daughter, Rachel, has taught me more than I ever thought I could learn. She's shown me that love and acceptance are more powerful than any tradition or legacy." The crowd listens intently, moved by his words. Rachel's eyes fill with tears as her father continues. "I'm proud of you, Rachel," he says, his gaze steady. "You've shown us all what it means to be true to yourself, to honor the memory of those we love by living in a way that brings people together. And for that, I thank you." A soft cheer rises from the guests, and Rachel embraces her father, feeling a new depth of connection between them. The reception unfolds with joy and laughter, the air filled with music and lively conversation. Rachel and Liam move through the crowd, greeting guests, sharing stories, and basking in the warmth of their community. The guests mingle freely, sharing in the spirit of unity that Rachel and Liam have worked so hard to cultivate. Throughout the evening, people approach Daniel, thanking him for his presence and for the ways he has touched their lives through the program. Some guests who were initially skeptical find themselves moved by his humility and kindness, and the gathering feels like a genuine celebration of the diverse connections they now share. As the evening winds down, Liam and Rachel find a quiet moment together, sitting beneath the stars, hands intertwined. They talk about their dreams for the future, discussing plans to expand the community program and continue the work that Rachel's grandmother inspired. "I want to keep this going," Rachel says, her voice filled with determination. "I want our family to stand for something that matters, to build a legacy that honors the love we felt today." Liam nods, his eyes shining with pride. "I'm with you, Rachel. Whatever it takes, we'll make this dream a reality." They share a gentle kiss, the promise of a life built on love and shared values. In the weeks following the wedding, Rachel, Liam, and Daniel pour their energy into launching the community program they envisioned. The first workshop is set at a local community center, decorated with photos of Rachel's grandmother and quotes from her favorite books, each line echoing her values of kindness and courage. Dozens of young people gather, some from underprivileged backgrounds, others simply curious about the program. Rachel feels a swell of pride as she watches Daniel begin to speak, sharing his story with the same quiet strength he had shown at her wedding. "Your grandmother taught me to believe in myself," he tells the crowd, his voice steady and warm. "No matter where you come from, you have something unique to offer. This program exists because she saw the best in others, and we want to help you see the best in yourselves." The young participants listen intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and admiration. Rachel exchanges a grateful glance with Liam, feeling their shared purpose deepen with each person who joins the conversation. As the community program gains momentum, Richard becomes a regular attendee at the workshops. At first, he attends quietly, observing from the back of the room, uncertain but eager to understand the path his daughter has chosen. He watches Daniel mentor young people with patience and empathy, guiding them toward realizing their own potential. One afternoon, Richard approaches Daniel, a newfound respect evident in his posture. "Daniel, I want to thank you for what you're doing here. Seeing the impact this has on these kids, it's humbling." Daniel smiles, nodding. "Thank you, Mr. Sanders. It means a lot coming from you. I know this hasn't been easy." Richard clears his throat, his voice softer. "You've shown me that sometimes the greatest legacy we can leave is through the lives we touch. And I'm grateful for that lesson." The two men share a handshake that feels like a silent truce, a testament to the bridge they have built between their once divided perspectives. As the weeks go by, Rachel's extended family begins to take an interest in the program, particularly her Aunt Marilyn and her cousin Julia, who had initially resisted the idea of bringing Daniel into their lives. Inspired by Rachel's passion and Richard's involvement, they volunteer to help organize events and offer mentorship to participants. At one gathering, Marilyn approaches Rachel with a soft smile. "I've been stubborn, Rachel, and I'm sorry. Watching you work with Daniel, seeing the impact this has had on the family, it's changed my perspective. I'd like to help in any way I can." Rachel embraces her aunt, feeling a deep sense of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Aunt Marilyn. It means so much that you're here with us. Together, they coordinate the program's upcoming events, each family member contributing in a unique way that brings them closer. Their shared purpose becomes a new family tradition, one rooted in compassion and inclusion. In honor of her grandmother's memory and the program's success, Rachel organizes the first annual community festival, a vibrant celebration that brings together people from all backgrounds. The festival includes music, art displays, workshops led by community leaders, and a special section for children's activities. Held at the family estate, the festival serves as a reminder of how far they've come. Rachel's family, once divided over tradition and prejudice, now stands united in support of the legacy she has built. As guests fill the estate grounds, Rachel spots a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd. It's her father, Richard, watching with quiet pride as people mingle and laugh. For the first time, she feels that her father truly sees the value in what she has worked so hard to create. During the festival, a woman named Carol approaches Rachel, introducing herself as a community leader who had once known her grandmother. Carol commends Rachel on her efforts, sharing her own memories of Margaret and the impact she had on so many lives. Your grandmother was always there for people, Carol says, her voice warm. And now, you're here, carrying on that same spirit. If there's ever anything you need, funding, support, volunteers, our organization would love to help. Rachel feels a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Carol. That means everything to us. I think Grandma would be proud to see all of this come together. With Carol's organization as a new ally, Rachel envisions even greater possibilities for the program, hoping to extend its reach to neighboring towns and provide resources for those who need them most. As the first year of the program draws to a close, Rachel, Liam, and Daniel host a small gathering for family, volunteers, and participants to celebrate their collective achievements. They reflect on the lives touched by the program, from young people who found mentors to families who found a community of support. In a heartfelt speech, Rachel addresses the gathering. Thank you all for being a part of this journey. What started as a tribute to my grandmother has grown into something that belongs to all of us. Together, we're creating a legacy of love, compassion, and understanding. The room erupts into applause, and Rachel's heart swells as she looks out at the faces of those who have joined her in making a difference. Richard continues to support the program, often attending workshops and even offering financial backing. His transformation has a ripple effect on the family, who have come to embrace the program as a part of their own legacy. One afternoon, Rachel finds her father in his study, looking over a donation request for the program. He glances up as she enters, a quiet smile on his face. You've given me a lot to think about, Rachel, he says. I realize now that family isn't just about preserving tradition, it's about evolving too. And I'm proud to be part of this legacy you've created. Rachel's eyes fill with tears as she embraces him. Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done any of this without you. As the years pass, the community program continues to grow, its influence spreading to neighboring towns and inspiring others to start similar initiatives. Rachel, Liam, and Daniel remain committed to their mission, working tirelessly to ensure that their grandmother's values continue to thrive. They expand the program to include educational scholarships, job training, and community events that foster connection and understanding. The program's success inspires countless individuals, creating a ripple effect of compassion and support. On the program's 5th anniversary, Rachel hosts a reunion for everyone involved, from her family and close friends to community leaders and participants who have been impacted by the program. They gather at the same estate where her journey began, the air filled with laughter and music, as children run through the gardens and families share stories of hope and growth. Rachel looks around, her heart full as she sees the impact of her efforts reflected in the smiles and connections around her. She knows that her grandmother's legacy is alive and well, woven into the fabric of every life the program has touched. Richard joins her, a proud smile on his face. This is more than I ever could have imagined, he says quietly. Thank you for showing me that sometimes The greatest tradition we can uphold is the one we create ourselves. Rachel hugs her father, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude. Thank you, Dad, for believing in me. As the reunion draws to a close, Rachel, Liam, and Daniel stand together, watching as families say their goodbyes, lingering in the glow of an evening that feels both familiar and new. Rachel knows that their work has only just begun, that each act of kindness and acceptance will continue to ripple outward, creating a world her grandmother would be proud of. The three of them share a quiet toast, their glasses raised in gratitude and hope. To love, Rachel says, her voice filled with conviction. To the family we choose and the legacy we create. As they clink their glasses, they know that they are not just celebrating a program or a tradition. They are celebrating a life dedicated to making a difference, a legacy of love that will endure for generations to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story about love, family, and the courage to stand up for what's right, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. By subscribing, you'll join a community that celebrates powerful stories of compassion, unity, and resilience. We've got more inspiring journeys coming your way. So stay tuned and be part of the legacy of love we're building together. Subscribe now, and let's keep sharing stories that uplift, connect, and inspire.